All right. Good morning. My name is Josh Doying, and I'm the Startup Success Manager at UMD's UM Ventures. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you who have joined us for today's workshop. This is part of our Startup Fundamentals workshop series, and it's a series that we do in collaboration with the Maryland Technology Institute, MTech, as well as the Dingman Lamone Center for Entrepreneurship here on campus. For those who are live, welcome. For those who are watching this as a recording, and for those who are live, please be aware that this session is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel for future access. If you have questions, we have the chat open, and I've got that open, and we'll be monitoring it as I go through. We'll stop and answer your question in the moment as pertinent. There'll also be time for Q&A at the end. But real quickly, while I do my introduction here, would love to just get a feel for our audience and kind of who you represent. Let me know, are you a faculty? Are you a student? Are you a staff member at the University of Maryland? Are you an alumni? Are you not associated with the university? Just let me know a little bit about who you are and what you're hoping to get out of this workshop, and feel free to throw that into the chat. Would love to hear about who you are so I can make sure that I tailor the information to you. Just give folks a minute to get started on that. Okay, so first I want to talk quickly about UM Ventures and what we are. So we are for innovators in either the sciences or the humanities who are passionate about their research and would like a low-risk opportunity to transform it into a product or service to benefit the public. That is in line with the mission of the University of Maryland as a public state university. But we are all about transforming research again into a product or service. This is something that is referred to as commercialization, and it plays a critical role in allowing research that takes place in a lab or on a campus to make an impact in the world. So for example, we kind of use this one a lot, but if a researcher identifies a cure for a disease, let's say a cure for cancer, and publishes it in a journal, that article cannot actually cure anybody of cancer. The research needs to be translated into some sort of product by some entity, usually a company, and manufactured and delivered to customers who will then use that product to cure the cancer. And so commercialization is just that entire process from taking an innovation and turning it into something that can help a customer or a consumer with the problem that they are facing. UM Ventures exists to support researchers at the university accomplish that goal. And again, I'm seeing some responses come in on who you are, and so appreciate the folks who are filling that in. So like I said, UM Ventures is just one of many different organizations here on campus that works with entrepreneurs and innovation. A great place to go to understand all the resources that are available to entrepreneurs and innovators on campus is innovate.umd.edu. It's got a great kind of home webpage, and once you get there, if you scroll down, you'll actually see this screen that lists a lot of the different members of our ecosystem: investors, industry, startup businesses, faculty, students, and alumni. And so again, the purpose of today's meeting is to talk about specifically startup businesses, faculty, and then a little bit with students. If you are an undergrad student, the best place for you to go is the Dingman Lamone Center, which is geared towards undergrad students. But we do work with graduate, doctoral, and postdoc students as well. So again, please feel free to ask questions. I'll make sure to point you in the direction. I'll make sure as I talk about the resources that are available, who they're available to, and what different groups can use them, which ones are available to broader groups, which ones are available to narrow groups. But again, please feel free to ask your questions based on who you are and what you're looking for. So why this distinction between undergrad students and faculty members? We're going to take a step back to address that. It has to do with intellectual property. The definition of intellectual property is that intellectual property refers to creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images used in commerce. And I put under that the mission of the university, which is the primary mission of universities is to advance, preserve, and disseminate knowledge. And so intellectual property is something that is developed on campus, and the purpose of our campus is to disseminate that knowledge to a wider audience. And so since this is our purpose, the way that we as a university manage intellectual property is baked into our policy and again, our mission. And so we have policy at the University of Maryland on intellectual property to assure that the benefits of university research and scholarship, which include IP, are fairly and fully disseminated to benefit the public. Two, to create an environment that encourages and recognizes the creative efforts of faculty, students, and personnel. And three, generates the resources to support the university's primary mission. And so again, the IP, which is what faculty develop, Ventures exists to help protect that, but then also to make sure that we are spreading it as per the university's mission. And so what we do is we work with the different types of IP. There's a whole bunch of different types of IP, but patents, trademarks, service mark, copyrights are kind of four big ones. We work mostly with patents, but we do work with the other types of IP. There are, even among these types of IP, there's things like a Creative Commons license, there's open source. These are all just different types of intellectual property that exist to protect these creations of the mind that are being developed on campus. And again, IP can be developed anywhere, but specifically the ones we work with are on campus. And we work to ensure that we are identifying the right types of IP protections so that IP can be shared and spread in a responsible way. One example, and I'll use examples throughout our presentation today, is Dr. Jim Fay, who received an NSF grant and collaborated with researchers from a variety of different institutions and created the Connected Mathematics Core Plus curriculum. If he had received this grant and worked with these researchers and didn't pursue any sort of IP protection, just published it in a journal, then the onus would have been on practitioners of math education to find that research, identify the conclusions of that research, and then apply it on their own to the teaching that they were doing. But instead, Dr. Jim Fay worked with us. We pursued copyright protections for that, and then we're able to license that copyright to a publisher who turned it into a set of textbooks and curriculum that were sold and distributed to all these practitioners of mathematics and used in classrooms across the country to the benefit of thousands and thousands of students. So that's the first part of why we pursue IP protections, and then why we use that IP and commercialize it into actual products that go out into the real world. So it gets that research out into the hands of consumers. But then second, the money that comes back to the university is split between the university and the researchers. And in Dr. Fay's case, he actually donated all of his inventor shares back to the university. And that has been used to fund more than a dozen PhD and postdoc positions within the College of Education. And so it is this virtuous cycle where commercialization helps to create products that are then used. It helps provide an incentive for companies to go out and produce those products at scale. But then the money that is returned to the university can also go back into creating more research opportunities and creating more opportunities for students and faculty in the future. Because of this, there's over $1 million in funding opportunities for IP developed at the university. Some of this money comes from national organizations, some of it comes from the federal government, some of it comes from the state government, some of it comes from the university itself. But there's a vested interest in commercializing technology. Again, taking that research that y'all are working on and turning it into products that benefit individuals throughout the world. And here are some of those listed. We're going to go through a variety of these today. I will return back to this slide, but just want to say, highlight this because there is this money, and this doesn't even count SBRs and STTRs. And so we want to guide you through the process of what of this funding is available to you, when should you look at it, how should you look at it, and that's the purpose of today's workshop. So in order to help you on that mission, to help you understand the process that you should go through, we created startupguide.umd.edu. And I'm actually going to pull this over real quick. So here's the website. It's, again, geared towards faculty and graduate students. However, even if you are just an undergrad student or a partner with the university, the kind of general steps here are what one would call the ideal startup path. And then we link it to the different resources that are available at each of those steps. You don't have to follow this guide. If you scroll down, you'll see it kind of follows a kind of game board approach to leading from start to finish. But I will be going through specifically the feasibility assessment and the startup formation portions of the startup guide. But like I said, you don't have to follow it exactly the direction that it goes. I'll talk about how people can kind of jump from one place to another. And again, how you use the startup guide or this pathway depends a lot on your innovation and like what type of, which of these resources makes sense for you to take advantage of. But again, want to lay out everything that is here so that you can identify what works best for you. So it's broken down into these 4 main steps: feasibility assessment, startup formation, startup acceleration, and sustainable company. And so we'll start with the feasibility assessment. Here's what our game board looks like here. And feasibility assessment is really just the first stage. Does this innovation have a feasible future as a service or product, right? We don't want you to, obviously everybody loves their research. It's all, amazing, interesting stuff. But we don't want people pursuing research in the hope of commercializing it if there actually isn't a market that is developed for it. One of the examples that I use for this is early in the rocket ship program, NASA creating rocket ships, right? They developed this technology readiness level and this entire process to measure the readiness of the technology to do what it was purported to do, to get a rocket to the moon. And we still use TRLs today, technology readiness levels today. And they were able to get that rocket to the moon. But at that point in time, there wasn't a huge commercial market for rocket ships, right? And so the market wasn't ready for this commercialization process to take place. Today, the opposite is true, right? There is a market for rocket ships. SpaceX exists because there's a commercial application of using rockets to get products up into space, to service satellites, to service, the astronauts going to the space station. And so the feasibility assessment portion isn't looking at, hey, can the technology do what it's supposed to do? That's a technology assessment. The feasibility assessment is there a market for this technology, and what does that market look like, and how big is it, and what is the market asking for? So the first steps in feasibility assessment are right here at the top. Tell us about your innovation, connect with a mentor, and create an IP management plan. So the very first step is you submit a disclosure to Ventures. In order to do that, you can use this short link, go.umd.edu/discloseip. And what it is you tell us, our office, about what your innovation is. We have innovation managers who work with researchers and who will, generally you submit the disclosure first, you submit a form to us, and then we will set up a meeting to talk with you about what is your innovation. Explain it in layman's terms. If you're working on a publication, help us, send us the publication. Let us know when that publication is coming forward, what's been disclosed so far to the public. Because we want to work with you to develop an IP management plan. We can begin filing a provisional patent, and again, we have to assess, hey, is this patentable, or what type of copyright or what type of IP protections are necessary, and so we need information from you on that. And we need to know who all has been involved, where has it been disclosed, and all those steps an innovation manager will walk through with you to make sure that we are taking the appropriate steps for your IP to be protected so that we can pursue these things. There are certain things that you could do if you make a public disclosure and you don't begin filing, well, sorry, let me take a step back. If you make a public disclosure, you generally have about a year where you can still make an IP filing and protect that disclosure if you do that before anyone else does. And so there's a variety of technicalities in there where we just want you disclose first. Our IP, our innovation managers will walk through the process with you and help you to identify, hey, what do I need to do? While they go and identify, hey, what do we need to do? Is this protectable, and what is the commercial plan for it? And then once we determine that, we go and we explore, should we create an option for this? Should we license this? Who are the customers that we could do that to? Should we license it to an existing company? Should we consider spinning off a startup? Today's workshop will be focused kind of on the startup process, but that's what our innovation managers do. So step 1 is disclose. We will then generally, if you're choosing to pursue a startup path, connect you with a mentor. We have entrepreneurs in residence that we collect people with. And then, like I said, our innovation manager will begin working on an IP management plan with you to protect that IP and make sure that you're following all the steps necessary. The next big step is engaging in customer discovery. So when you invent something, right, you have a hypothesis about what that invention, excuse me, is capable of doing. But you also have a hypothesis about how people will use it and what they want to do with your invention. You can test your invention, and the hypothesis you have about that, in a lab with the invention. You run a variety of trials to see if it can do what you purport or claim it can do. But to identify what people want to do with it and what their needs are, we have to go out and we have to talk with those people, and that's called customer discovery. You'll notice here on the game board, we skip this TEDCO step. I'm going to go back to it. We do this customer discovery step. We encourage folks to do this first. It can take place after the MII step. The reason we have it here is because we didn't want people to feel that they had to do customer discovery before applying to MII. Again, I'm going to talk about MII very soon, but just noting where this is on the game board and why I'm starting with this step, and then I'll go backwards to the other step. But anyways, customer discovery is the process of talking with customers about how they solve the problem that your invention or research is going to solve for them. The University of Maryland is a regional I-Corps hub. I-Corps is a National Science Foundation funded program that was developed specifically to help researchers commercialize their research, right? Because we have, again, a vested interest in turning this research into products. The regional program is a 3-week program. Happens generally on Fridays, Friday mornings. It's like a 3-hour session. And you're paired with mentors, you're working with a cohort group, you're learning how to go and ask the pertinent questions, who to ask those questions to, you're doing a little bit of business modeling of what your product will look like in a commercial setting. And really it's just this fantastic program where for the regional, you're going to go out and you're going to talk to 20 different people. The program's going to help you identify who you should be talking to, right? You might think you want to talk to experts in the field, but what you actually have to talk to is their financial managers because they're the one making purchasing decisions, right? Or again, if you're looking at pharmaceuticals, right? Should you be talking to the doctor? Should you be talking to the hospital administrator? Should you be talking to the patients? And the answer is, all 3 of them, but all 3 of them are going to give you different information about what your product, what your pharmaceutical product would actually do, who's going to use it, how much they're going to pay for it, what they're currently doing. And so it allows you to test a whole bunch of hypotheses you have about your customer base and receive really important information and potentially even meet some future customers. The regional program is not funded. However, it is excellent. I cannot emphasize this enough. It is such a well-developed program. It really helps you walk through, and customer discovery is just such an important part of the commercialization and the startup process. I know talking to people and talking to lots of people and reaching out and doing cold calls and trying to set up interviews can be intimidating, but that's why I just double down on this is really valuable, and we really encourage people to do it, even though there's no funding attached. However, if you go through regional I-Corps, or if your product has NSF, your research had NSF funding associated with it, you can go to National I-Corps. And the National I-Corps program just steps that up a level. As opposed to a 3-week program, it's a little bit longer. It usually takes place over the summer. And instead of doing 20 customer interviews, you do 100 customer interviews. But to help with that, there's $50,000 in grant money associated with participation in the national program. And it is also increases your chances of receiving SBIR as well as other grant money. And being able to say we took this through National I-Corps will again look really good on future applications that you put together. Just addressing the audience here. Let's see. Okay, awesome. Just looking at what people have put in the chat. So the National I-Corps, again, is reserved specifically for innovations coming out of the university space. However, the regional program is designed to be open to all types of people. And so if you are just a community member and you're interested in doing customer discovery and having some help doing that, the regional I-Corps is something that you can apply for. And if you just look up, I believe it is icorps.umd.edu. Yeah, icorps.umd.edu is the website, and I'll put that in the chat. That's where you can access that program. Okay, still in feasibility assessment, I'm going to talk about TEDCO MII. So TEDCO is the investment wing of the government of Maryland, and MII is the Maryland Innovation Initiative. And it's a pair of awards. One of them is a grant, one of them is a convertible debt note. But the first phase is TEDCO MII Technology Validation Grant. And it's a $130,000 grant with no overhead. You apply, and again, this applies specifically to university research, so it is not available to undergrad students or folks in the community. But if you are working on university research in a lab, the TEDCO MII program is available to researchers at University of Maryland College Park and a couple of other universities here in the state of Maryland. But you apply for the money, and then the purpose of the application is we've got this, you say we've got this innovation, we want to explore the commercialization potential of this innovation. And so this money can pay for the salaries, equipment, materials, outside consultants and experts, additional R&D, whatever you need to kind of get this from just, hey, we've got a technology to this technology is commercialization ready. It's a 9-month project, and at the end of that project, you present kind of a commercialization plan of what you are going to do to turn this innovation into a commercializable product. As part of the MII program, we connect you with a site miner who has worked with other people who have done this MII grant application. I've got them up on the slide right here. They each have their own area of expertise. I actually have to update this slide. We have an additional site miner because we've had a lot of success with this program. But they're great, and they help guide you through the process, guide you through the entire application process, and really become excellent mentors for you as you, again, start to transition from thinking of this as like a research project to a, hey, what does the commercialization of this product look like? The MII program has application deadlines every quarter. So the next one will be July 17th, will then be October 17th, July 15th, October 15th, January 15th, and March 15th. We ask that you reach out and connect with us at least a month in advance of any application deadline. That's how long it usually takes to pull the application together. If you reach out any closer than that, we probably won't have time to get you connected with the site miner and begin putting together the proper application. You need letters of recommendation from our office. You need to make sure that you've disclosed an innovation. So if you're hearing this and you're working on some university research and you're like, wow, that July 15th date looks great, act now. Stay on afterwards and talk with me a little bit, and we can talk about whether it's feasible to get something in by July 15th. If not, then October 15th is probably the deadline that you would want to target. But those are submitted again quarterly. About a month after submissions, you'll find out if you've been awarded the money, and then, like I said, it's $130,000 for a 9-month project to continue exploring commercialization research. And that grant money goes directly to a PI or a researcher. I mentioned earlier that we have other mentors, entrepreneurs in residence that we can connect with folks. Again, talking to audience, these entrepreneurs in residence are available to anybody. Go to go.umd.edu/EIR2022. It's a little bit of an old link, but it'll take you to their calendar. They make time available every week to meet with folks. And they meet with faculty, they meet with students, they meet with alumni. These are all former entrepreneurs who are just really interested in the process of continuing to help the ecosystem, have connected with us at the University of Maryland. But again, they're super willing to help all different types of people. So that short link will take you directly to calendars where you can sign up to meet with one of these entrepreneurs in residence and just get advice as you go about thinking about, hey, what are the next steps for me? Part of the feasibility assessment is determining your own feasibility in leading a startup. And, I think just like in many aspects of life, we all need help, right? And so we have an entire YouTube channel where we record every workshop that we do. And we try and do workshops on all the different parts of the startup journey, as well as other business skills. And so if you just go to Startup UMD, search that on YouTube, that'll pull up our YouTube channel, and you can find videos and recordings on how to find a CEO, how to split equity, how to go about the patenting process. We've got a video on all these different business skills, and part of that is identifying the skills in yourself that you need, but also identifying maybe the skills that you're going to need to recruit from other people. And here's our short link to get there, go.umd.edu/workshops2022. But again, we just have a variety, and we record every workshop that we do and post it to the YouTube channel so that it's accessible, and anybody can look up those videos and get more information there. And then finally, engage in more customer discovery, right? I said customer discovery was really important. That's why we've got it twice in the feasibility assessment slide. This one, refers to National I-Core is kind of the program that we had in mind for this. But again, you can never be doing too much customer discovery. You always want to be talking to the customers because ultimately they're the ones who are going to decide if a product or an innovation takes hold or not, if it actually meets their needs or if it doesn't meet their needs. So I'm going to tell the story of Hazel Analytics. I think this is such a great example of both the customer discovery process, but also how research goes from something that is a research product to a commercializable product. So Dr. Ginger Jin is a professor of economics at UCLA, and it started with research into what health inspection ratings get published and those that aren't, and trying to predict those that aren't. A very, economics type question of predicting outcomes and information in markets, and incredibly academic, right? Like I had an undergrad in econ, like to me, super fascinating stuff, like would have loved to read this paper, and was doing that and realized that, hey, different jurisdictions have different health grades. And so it's difficult to compare grades across jurisdictions. And so she had to create an algorithm to normalize the health inspection grades of, again, these were generally of like restaurants across different jurisdictions. And she created this algorithm and then created a database across a variety of different jurisdictions in LA. And connected with Dr. Ben Betterson here at the University of Maryland to create that database. And he created kind of he's a computer science professor, and so created the technical element of that database. And then research funding ran out, and they still wanted to continue doing this project. And so got connected with MII to identify, hey, is there a commercial value to this database of health inspection ratings that we've put together across different jurisdictions? And through doing that program, identified there is some commercial value in this. There are, for example, the Cheesecake Factory has restaurants in many different jurisdictions, and they would find it valuable to know how to compare those ratings so that they could address issues or try and standardize the practices that needed to be in place for them to achieve the healthcare ratings that they wanted. And so then so this was in June of 2014. They participated in I-Core, April of 2015. They identified an MBA student at UCLA to take them through I-Core, do that customer research, and discovered that it wasn't just Cheesecake Factory, that there were lots of big chains that would be interested in being able to use this database of, again, health inspection scores. And so then they applied for, they applied for phase 3 of MII, company formation, which I'll talk about in my next couple slides, in May of 2016. So again, from the initial June of 2014 to May of 2016, they went through these 3 programs. I think that's a good, again, kind of illustration of the timeline, about 1.5 to 2 years to go through all of that. And that's all the funding that they took on from turning this into a research product into an actual business. It was used by all the companies that are here up on the screen. They became a partner with Yelp. If you go into Yelp today and you look up a business, you can look up their health score rating, and it says provided by Ecolabs. Ecolabs acquired Hazel Analytics, which was Dr. Jin and Dr. Betterson's company. And so yeah, they were acquired, and the only funding that they took on was the funding that they received from the MII programs. They didn't have to give up any equity, and huge success story. Again, we're able to cash out and exit, and still in use today. Can pull it up on your phone and check it out. And I think just a really cool story of how research turns into something that now, again, anybody who uses Yelp is using in part a product that they developed. So the next step after feasibility assessment, after identifying, hey, is there a market need for it, is startup formation. It's actually time to start building a company, right? If there is a value for it, like let's figure out how to get it out there. And so in startup formation, here's what our little game board looks like. I'm going to jump straight to applying for MII. Well, let me talk through some of these other things first. There's engaging in legal counsel, registering your company, manage any potential conflicts of interest. So, registering your company, again, we've got a workshop on that. Same with legal counsel and who you should talk to. Ventures manages IP protection, but then you should also have your own legal counsel if you're starting a company, and we can talk through some of the folks that other startups that are associated with us work with. Conflict of interest, that's something that you just disclose to the university. The purpose of that is to make sure that you there will be conflicts. That doesn't mean that they say no. They're in the practice of saying yes and allowing you to do things, but you need to disclose to make sure that those conflicts are managed. And so the University Conflict of Interest Office will help you go through that. And so you are building your management team, you're applying to a variety of things, but like I said, the next big step is applying for this MII company formation funding. So as opposed to the first grant, which was $130,000, this is $300,000 as a convertible debt note. And so that means it could be a loan. It also could convert into equity. It just depends on what makes sense for you and your startup. The idea here is that most investors aren't willing to invest this much in a super early stage startup. This is supposed to be the money that gets you off the ground right as you start a company. And so as opposed to the MII technology validation or technology assessment grant, the first one that went to a lab, this money goes to a company. So you do have to form a company. Again, and it's for research coming out of the universities. And so you form a company and then you license that research from the University of Maryland. And that is a university startup, and you're available to apply for this program. Just like step one, there's a 9-month project to support the advancement of the technology to achieve the commercial milestones that significantly increase the company's value and your ability to take on additional funding. And again, to get more information about that, it's go.umd.edu/about-MII. Here are some of our MII metrics over the last 4 years, but just looking at FY24, we had 20 applications, 14 of them were approved, and we had $2.6 million awarded in funding to companies. And so it's, again, a great way to get money in the door and to be able to really explore, hey, does this have commercial value? And if it does, let's get started on working on this. Oh, sorry. And then, yeah, after MII, you begin developing your business model as part of that program. Like I said, right here, you license the IP from the university. There's workspace on campus. There are a variety of accelerators that we can connect you with. You begin developing your MVP or prototype. Again, there's places on campus that help you with that. The Shell Foundry works specifically with biological devices. But again, there's a variety of different things that we can do to help you through these processes. But I did want to highlight before the next slide is MIPS funding. So MIPS is the Maryland Industrial Partnership, and I don't know what the S stands for, but MIPS allows a company to put in, specifically for startups, put in $10,000 and get $90,000 of matching money to continue doing R&D research here on campus. And so if you have research that you commercialize by starting a company, then that external company could take $10,000, maybe from some of the money you get through MII or maybe from external investors, and then you can 9x that by doing this MIPS program to continue doing R&D research here on campus. And it's a really neat partnership. But the story here is Dr. Kan Kao, an associate professor in the Department of Cell Biology and Molecular Genetics, was one of the leading researchers on human aging, specifically caused by syndromes like progeria. In 2014, she discovered that a common dye, methylene blue, had incredible anti-aging properties for human skin. So she decided to do technology validation through MII, so that's the first phase, in 2015. Through our entrepreneur in residence, so through one of the mentors we connected her with, right? Dr. Kan Kao was an aging researcher. She found this anti-aging qualities of methylene blue, but didn't know what to do with it. Her mentor said, you should talk to Jasmine El-Kordi, who is an accomplished industry professional in the skincare industry. And so they were able to connect, and Jasmine became the CEO of her company, and she started M Blue Labs. So 2015, the first phase. In 2018, they received additional funding from MII, the company formation funding, and were able to use that to launch their first product, Blue Lean Night and Day Cream, which became popular with customers. And since then, they've expanded their product line to include a variety of innovations. Just this year, they were recognized as one of Maryland's most promising startups by the Maryland Tech Initiative. They were recognized by the United States Chamber of Commerce as a top 100 small business. But again, going from a lab, researching something, completely different to going to skincare products, but like that was the commercial value, and that was what the market wanted to see in this technology. And so again, really successful company. I think I'd highly recommend. She had a write-up. She was the cover story in the University of Maryland Spring magazine, Terp Mag. I don't have a copy here with me, otherwise I'd hold it up, but we're really proud of Dr. Cow and what she's been able to do with this research. So again, this is back to the slide I shared earlier. I've talked about NSF, I've talked about TEDCO, I've talked about the Maryland Industrial Partnerships. There's the Discovery Fund, the Maryland Momentum Fund. Discovery Fund is for specifically businesses based in PG County. The Maryland Momentum Fund is a matchmaking program for early stage startups. And so if you get external investing, they will match the investing that you're getting from an external investor. The Chesapeake-based Seed Capital Fund was initially geared towards research that benefited the Chesapeake Bay, but it's been broadly expanded to almost any green innovation or technology, right? If there's a positive environmental impact, you can qualify for that. The Medical Device Development Fund, pretty self-explanatory for medical devices. Anyway, there's all of these funds that you can apply for that provide funding for research and innovation coming out of these areas. Some of them are, as I've said kind of throughout this presentation, restricted to university-based research, but some of them are open more broadly, like the Chesapeake Bay Seed Capital Fund, I think, is not just based in university research. It's open to anybody who's working on a product that has a positive environmental impact. And so if you go to startupguide.umd.edu, we've got the steps for startup acceleration and sustainable company. These steps take place a lot more hands-off from us. We can help guide you through and we can help connect you with resources. But by this point in time, you're a functioning company with a functioning user base and revenue. And so you aren't working as closely with us, but we've got information and resources up about those two steps as well. And so just closing out to highlight some more success stories, and then I'll do Q&A. IonQ was developed based on quantum research in collaboration with researchers excuse me, here at the University of Maryland and Duke University. They're one of the biggest publicly traded quantum computing companies in the US. They're based here in College Park. And so, yeah, just a great success story of, and I share them to say, not everybody follows the pathway that I just said, right? Quantum computing had so much external interest that they didn't actually need a lot of the MII and kind of the early stage stuff. They were able to disclose it and then go straight into forming a company and getting external investment, and that's what they did. So you don't have to stick to this traditional game plan. I also like to highlight Dr. Srini Raghavan and Dr. Lingbing Hu. You'll see there's 2 faculty members, but there are, I think, 7 different startups on this page. It's because both of them had figured out the trick for commercializing and starting a lot of startups. And the trick, as they would tell you, is to disclose and then take a step back. They both generally identify really successful grad students or postdocs that they're working with who are interested in entrepreneurship or interested in the research that they're doing, and let those individuals take the lead. As I've talked through these programs, right? Writing an MII grant, participating in the 9-month project, going to I-Corps for 3 weeks. That's something that's really hard to do as a researcher and really hard to fit into your schedule. And so the ones that we have found are most successful empower the people that they work with to be able to take these steps. We as an office also are working with researchers, and we've got interns and student teams and business students who come to us and say, I'm interested in entrepreneurship. And so if you're looking for people to be an entrepreneurial lead on your team, to almost be like a chief operation officer, to kind of get your idea from this idea phase off the ground, please connect with us and we'll try and connect you with the appropriate students. Again, we have found it to be really successful, especially Dr. Hu. Originally, really wanted to lead everything, and he just kind of stalled for a little bit because he just didn't have time to manage the research and all the demands on his time with trying to start a startup. And as soon as he stepped back, he was able to still be involved, very involved, but other people were able to do a lot of the work for him, and he was able to spin it off into a variety of different startups. We've got Inventwood, High-Tech, Polymerex, Ceracool. There's a whole bunch of opportunities there. And Dr. Srini with Medcura, Grip Boost, and Gelectric, right? Same idea. The last thing, the kind of next steps here, review startupguide.umd.edu. That's where you can see this whole process laid out. If you have research or if you have something that you're working on and you haven't done customer discovery yet, start regional I-Corps. The next session will be in August, but I believe applications are due by the end of July. Sign up to talk with an EIR. register for our Startup Fundamentals workshops. By registering for this workshop, we'll put you on our email list and make sure you get updates about future workshops. If you have IP, if you have an innovation that you would like to disclose, please submit that. go.umd.edu/disclose-IP and we can begin working with you on the process. And again, once you're working with us, then we can keep you updated about this is the deadline for MII, or there's an I-Core session coming up, or you should meet with a site miner. And then, applying for the, whatever funding is appropriate. But that's all that I've got for you today. If you've got questions, and I see some questions in the chat, please populate the chat. I will answer these questions, and I'm also happy to stay on and answer questions to other folks. But again, just appreciate everybody being here, and good luck with your innovations. So let's see, I'm going to read some of the questions here. Ali Beck asked, what can I recommend for Virginia-based startups? And so it depends on if you're working in association with a Virginia-based university, then they would have very similar programs to what we're offering here. If it's just a Virginia startup, you're based in Virginia, like again, the I-Core program is agnostic to where you're from. You can apply to our I-Core program. We support the entire Mid-Atlantic region, so Virginia, North Carolina, Delaware, parts of Pennsylvania. So I-Core is totally available and open to you. Otherwise, again, if you're associated with the university, reach out to that university and identify what resources they have for you. But just like a lot of when I was reading the funding page, a lot of those come from the state. And so Virginia would have similar things through the state of Virginia. You might want to go to the SBDC, Small Business Development Corporation. I don't know what the C stands for. I'm struggling with the last letters and acronyms today. But SBDC, type that into the chat. They would have resources for you in your local area. And again, there are a variety of local resources that are available. Derek asks, does Ventures provide a way for faculty entrepreneurs to connect and share their experience and suggestions? Derek, we do have some events that take place. It's difficult for us to just, when we're approached by faculty who are starting up things, there's no clear timeline for any of that, right? Somebody's going to approach us in March and someone else is going to approach us in October and 3 people are going to approach us in May, right? And so it's tough to say we're going to do an event here and we're going to bring them all together because everybody's kind of at different stages. So we have occasional events throughout the year. What I would recommend the most is just connecting with our mentors, because that opens up the network for you. Our mentors have worked with many of the faculty who have come before you, and then also have connections external as well. And so it might even be something where you go on to our EIR website and you sign up for a time slot with all 3 of our mentors, right? And have the same discussion with 3 of them, because they're going to have 3 different perspectives for you, but they're also going to have access to 3 different networks for you. And ask them the same question every time you meet with somebody. Who else do you think I should be talking to? Have you worked with any other faculty? What advice would they have? If you're, Derek, working with Ala or one of the innovation managers, again, feel free to ask us and we can try and connect you with a faculty member or 2 who might fit your situation. But I will also put my email in the chat so you can email me and ask that question to me. But my advice now is, yes, we do occasional events, where we can bring people together and they can all be together in one space. But your best bet for working through it immediately is just broadening your network, and broadening your network through working with our EIRs, our mentors. Okay. Not seeing any other questions in the chat. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, raise your hand. Paul asks about tourism specific. Sorry, Paul, I don't have a ton of industry specific type stuff. But again, SBDC might be a good place for you to go. Your local, let's see if I can pull up an SBDC website. There we go, the C, Small Business Development Center. So SBDCs are run by the U.S. Small Business Administration, but there are a variety of local centers. Again, there's one based right here out of the University of Maryland, but if you are somewhere else like Virginia or somewhere else in Maryland, you can look up your local SBDC, and they're designed to have resources available to you, and that would be a good question for them. Okay. Well, I just wanted to thank everyone for their participation today. Again, I dropped my email in the chat. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out directly. But good luck with your innovations, and I hope to see and work with some of you in the future. All right, see you later.